Listen to me carefully, because this is not a gentle whisper and this is not a casual idea drifting through your mind. This is a moment of divine interruption. This is a wake-up call for those who have been stretched, tested, drained, and pushed to the edge. You have wondered how long you could keep holding on. You have asked in the quiet of your heart whether your effort even matters. And now, right where you are, with your back against the wall, your faith carrying more weight than your wallet, hear this truth with clarity and power. God has not forgotten you. God has not overlooked you. And God has not miscalculated your season. What you thought was depletion has been preparation. And what you thought was delay has been alignment. God is about to reload your bank account, not as a random act, not as luck, but as a deliberate response to your endurance, your obedience, and your trust when nothing made sense. Too many people think provision is only about numbers, but God has always worked through purpose before payment. God watches how you walk when your hands are empty. God observes your character when resources are scarce. God measures your heart long before He multiplies what you hold. You see lack as punishment, but God often uses lack as a classroom. In that classroom, patience is refined, discipline is sharpened, and pride is stripped away. When you learned how to pray without seeing results, when you learned how to give without applause, when you learned how to keep your integrity while others cut corners, something powerful was happening in the unseen. God was qualifying you for increase that would not destroy you. God does not reload accounts that will be wasted on ego, fear, or chaos. God reloads accounts that are aligned with responsibility, gratitude, and purpose. There are people listening to this who have worked harder than anyone around them, yet it seemed like doors stayed closed. You watched others rise quickly while you remained stuck, and you questioned whether God was fair. But fairness is not God's method, wisdom is. God knows what would have broken you 5 years ago. God knows what would have distracted you 2 years ago. God knows what would have inflated your ego last year. And so God slowed the process not to deny you, but to develop you. The delay was protection. The silence was instruction. The waiting was strengthening your foundation, so that when the weight of blessing arrives, you will stand instead of collapse. Hear this with understanding. Money is not evil, and provision is not shameful. Poverty is not holiness, and struggle is not virtue. God is not glorified by your constant anxiety over bills, debts, and survival. God is glorified when you live with peace, order, and generosity. God is glorified when your needs are met and your hands are open to help others. God is glorified when you walk without fear of tomorrow because you trust the one who controls it. The issue has never been money itself. The issue has always been who sits on the throne of your heart. When money rules you, it enslaves you. When God rules you, money becomes a tool, not a master. You must understand this season you are in. What feels like restriction has been refinement. God has been adjusting your mindset. God has been removing wasteful habits. God has been teaching you restraint, wisdom, and patience. You learned how to say no. You learned how to budget time, energy, and focus. You learned how to live without excess, so you could recognize abundance without arrogance. Many people pray for increase, but refuse correction. They want overflow without order. They want harvest without discipline. But God does not release provision into disorder. God brings increase where there is structure, stewardship, and humility. There are moments when God intentionally reduces what you have so you can see what you truly need. When the noise of excess fades, clarity rises. You begin to see where your strength really comes from. You realize how little you actually control and how much God has been carrying you. You discover that you survived things that should have crushed you. That realization builds a faith that money alone could never give. That faith becomes the container for what is coming next. God does not pour new wine into weak vessels. God strengthens the vessel first. Some of you have been embarrassed by your financial situation. You smiled in public and cried in private. You avoided gatherings because you could not afford to show up the way you wanted. You felt small, overlooked, and ashamed. But hear this clearly. God was not ashamed of you. God was proud of you. Proud of your perseverance. Proud of your honesty. Proud that you did not compromise your values to escape discomfort. Proud that you kept praying even when answers were slow. That quiet endurance has spoken louder in the unseen realm than any public success ever could. Provision does not come randomly. It follows alignment. When your thoughts align with truth, when your actions align with wisdom, when your intentions align with service, something shifts. Doors begin to open that no effort could force open. Opportunities appear that no connection could arrange. Favor begins to rest on your work in ways you cannot explain. That is not coincidence. That is orchestration. God knows where the resources are. God knows who holds the keys. God knows the exact moment when release will produce peace instead of pressure. You may think your past disqualifies you, but God is not limited by your history. God is not intimidated by your mistakes. God does not calculate your future based on your worst decisions. When you turned back, when you repented in your heart, when you chose integrity over shortcuts, something was reset. God specializes in restoration that logic cannot explain. What you lost through ignorance can be returned through wisdom. What you lost through haste can be rebuilt through patience. What you lost through fear can be replaced through faith. Understand this deeply. Increase is not only about receiving, it is about responsibility. God increases those who can carry weight without losing balance. When pressure rises, will you remain grounded? When numbers grow, will gratitude remain? When comfort arrives, will humility stay alive? God is preparing you to handle more without becoming less. More resources without less compassion. More success without less integrity. More freedom without less discipline. That kind of balance is rare, and God does not entrust it to those who have not been trained in the valley. There is a moment when obedience meets opportunity. You have obeyed in small things. You have been faithful in unseen places. You have done what was right, even when it cost you. That obedience has been building momentum. Like water behind a dam, pressure has been increasing. The release does not look dramatic at first, but once it begins, it is undeniable. Streams turn into rivers. Stability turns into overflow. Anxiety gives way to confidence. Not because you suddenly became smarter, but because God decided the timing was right. Do not underestimate the power of gratitude in this season. Gratitude shifts perspective. Gratitude acknowledges source. Gratitude keeps your heart soft when your circumstances are hard. When you thank God in advance, you are declaring trust before evidence. That posture changes everything. Complaining blocks flow, but gratitude opens channels. Fear tightens your grip, but trust loosens it. And when your hands are open, God can place something new within them. Some of you have been carrying the burden of providing for others while barely surviving yourselves. You gave when it hurt. You supported family when no one supported you. You stood strong while quietly breaking inside. God saw every sacrifice. God counted every tear. God recorded every moment you chose love over resentment. And let this truth settle in your spirit. Generosity never goes unnoticed. What you released in faith will return with increase in a form that fits your future, not your past. Do not rush the process now that you sense movement. Stay grounded. Stay disciplined. Stay focused. When God begins to reload your bank account, the temptation will be to relax too quickly, to spend emotionally, to compensate for years of deprivation. But wisdom says pause, plan, and proceed with intention. This next level requires maturity. God is not just changing your balance. God is changing your relationship with provision. You are moving from survival to stewardship, from anxiety to authority, from reaction to intention. There is a quiet confidence rising in you. Not arrogance, but assurance. You are no longer desperate. You are expectant. You are no longer chasing. You are aligning. You are no longer afraid of tomorrow. You are preparing for it. That shift did not come from money. It came from faith refined under pressure. That is the kind of faith that attracts increase without idolizing it. Remember this always. God is not limited by economies, systems, or opinions. When doors close, God creates new entrances. When paths disappear, God forms new routes. When resources dry up, God redirects supply. Your provision does not depend on one job, one person, or one opportunity. Your provision depends on God, who owns all avenues of supply and knows how to deliver at the exact moment it will bless rather than burden you. As you move forward, guard your heart. Do not let bitterness from the past poison the blessing of the future. Do not let fear sabotage momentum. Do not let comparison steal joy. What God is doing for you is tailored, intentional, and timed. It does not need validation from others to be real. Walk with confidence, speak with gratitude, act with wisdom, and trust with patience. This is not hype. This is alignment. This is not wishful thinking. This is preparation meeting prayers. You have been trained in the unseen. You have been strengthened in the quiet. You have been refined through pressure. And now, as discipline meets opportunity and faith meets timing, the flow begins to change. Not because you demanded it, but because you were ready. Not because you forced it, but because you were aligned. God is about to reload your bank account in a way that brings peace to your mind, order to your life, and purpose to your provision. And as this new season unfolds, you will recognize that the greatest wealth you gained was not just what entered your hands, but what was built within your heart as you learned to trust God when nothing else seemed certain, and you kept walking forward even when the path ahead was unclear, and the night felt long, and the silence felt heavy. And you wondered if anyone saw you still standing and believing and waiting and holding on without proof, but with conviction that God was still working behind the scenes, arranging details you could not see, preparing connections you had not met, aligning circumstances that would converge at just the right moment, teaching you patience that would protect you from impulsive decisions, humility that would keep you grounded when success arrived, wisdom that would guide your steps when options multiplied, and strength that would anchor you when responsibility increased and the weight of stewardship grew heavier, and the call to manage wisely became louder and clearer and more demanding, and you realized that the journey itself had reshaped you into someone capable of carrying what once would have overwhelmed you. And now you stand on the edge of a shift that feels both exciting and sobering, knowing that provision is not just about receiving, but about honoring the source, respecting the process, and walking forward with a heart that remembers every lesson learned in the valley, while stepping confidently into the abundance that God has determined is finally the right fit for who you have become and who you are still becoming as you move forward with faith that is steady, gratitude that is sincere, discipline that is consistent, and trust that remains unshaken. Even as the numbers change and the doors open and the sea turns, and you continue walking with God at the center of every decision, every plan, every step, knowing that this is not the end of the journey, but the continuation of a story that is still unfolding and still being written with purpose, intention, and divine wisdom guiding each moment as you move into what has been prepared for you all along. There comes a point in every life when belief must rise higher than circumstance, when trust must speak louder than evidence, and when faith must stand firm even as the ground beneath you shifts. This is that point. This is where God calls you to lift your eyes beyond what you see and anchor your confidence in what God has already determined. You have measured your future by yesterday's numbers, but God measures your future by purpose. You have evaluated your worth by income, but God evaluates your life by alignment. When those two measurements finally meet purpose, and alignment, provision follows naturally, powerfully, and without confusion. God never releases increase to prove something to others. God releases increase to establish peace within you. When provision arrives from God, it carries calm, not chaos. It brings clarity, not confusion. It produces stability, not fear. That is how you know the source. What God gives does not torment your sleep. What God provides does not divide your heart. What God supplies does not demand compromise. It settles you, it steadies you, it strengthens you from the inside out. Some of you are entering a season where decisions will matter more than ever before. Opportunities will come quickly, offers will sound attractive, and voices will try to rush you. But wisdom whispers while pressure shouts. Learn to listen for wisdom. God does not hurry what is sacred. God does not rush what is sustainable. God is patient because God sees the full picture, not just the immediate relief. What looks good today but costs you peace tomorrow is not from God. What builds steadily, quietly, and with order carries the mark of divine wisdom. There's also deeper work happening now, one that has nothing to do with numbers on a screen and everything to do with authority in your spirit. God is teaching you to rule over resources instead of being ruled by them. When money no longer controls your emotions, when lack no longer defines your identity, when abundance no longer inflates your ego, you have stepped into true freedom. That freedom is more valuable than any currency because it allows you to receive without fear and give without regret. Do not forget how far you have come. There were days You did not know how you would make it, yet here you are. There were nights filled with worry, yet you still rose and moved forward. That endurance did not come from chance. That strength was supplied moment by moment. God sustained you when answers were delayed. God protected you when mistakes could have cost you everything. God redirected you when your own plans would have led you astray. Every closed door saved you from something you could not see at the time. Now you are learning to trust silence as much as instruction. You are learning that God speaks not only through direction, but through restraint. When nothing moves, when nothing changes, when everything feels still, God is often working beneath the surface. Roots grow in silence. Foundations are strengthened underground. What will soon rise above ground must first be secured below it. That unseen work is why what comes next will last. Guard your thoughts carefully in this season. Your mindset is the doorway through which provision enters. If your mind is filled with fear, suspicion, and doubt, abundance will feel threatening instead of empowering. But when your thoughts are anchored in trust, gratitude, and patience, increase feel natural. Speak life over your situation. Speak order over your finances. Speak wisdom over your decisions. Words shape direction, and direction determines destination. There will be moments when old fears resurface, when memories of lack try to convince you that nothing has really changed. Do not agree with those voices. They belong to an old season that no longer defines you. You are not who you were when you were struggling. You are not who you were when you were afraid. You have grown. You have learned. You have been refined. And the lessons you gained will protect the blessings you are about to receive. Understand this truth deeply. God does not bless to impress. God blesses to establish. Establish peace. Establish order. Establish generosity. Establish impact. The increase coming into your life is not meant to terminate with you. It is meant to flow through you wisely, intentionally, and with purpose. That is why God has been so careful with timing. That is why the process took longer than you expected. What God builds carefully cannot be easily destroyed. You will notice that as provision increases, so does responsibility. This is not punishment, this is trust. God entrusts more to those who have proven they can manage little with integrity. Responsibility is the sign that God sees you as capable, stable, and mature. Embrace it without fear. You are not stepping into something beyond you. You are stepping into something prepared for you. Remain teachable, remain humble, remain grounded. Success tests character more than struggle ever did. When things improve, stay disciplined. When doors open, stay discerning. When comfort arrives, stay grateful. Gratitude keeps you aligned with the source. Gratitude keeps your heart soft. Gratitude keeps your perspective clear. There will be people who do not understand your journey. Some will question your growth. Some will doubt your testimony. Some will envy what they did not help build. Do not explain yourself. Let your peace speak. Let your consistency speak. Let your integrity speak. God is your vindication. God does not need your defense. God needs your obedience. As you walk forward, remember that this is not about arriving at a number. It is about living in alignment. When alignment is maintained, provision continues. When order is respected, stability remains. When gratitude stays alive, increase does not become a burden. You are learning how to walk with confidence without arrogance, with expectation without entitlement, with faith without presumption. This is a sacred moment in your life, a moment where preparation meets promise, a moment where patience meets provision, a moment where everything you endured begins to make sense. Not because the pain was good, but because the growth was necessary. Not because the struggle was easy, but because the strength it produced was essential. Stay close to God. Let every decision flow from that connection. Let every plan pass through wisdom. Let every increase be handled with care. What is unfolding now is not random, and it is not fragile. It has been built on discipline, shaped by faith, and timed by divine wisdom. And as you continue forward, steady and focused, you will see that what is being restored is not only financial stability, but confidence, peace, vision, and purpose, all aligning together in a way that confirms what your heart has quietly known for a long time, that God was never finished with you, that this season of preparation was necessary, and that what comes next will be carried with strength, managed with wisdom, and lived with gratitude as you keep moving forward under the guidance and provision of God alone. There is a sacred tension you are learning to live within, the space between promise and fulfillment. And God is teaching you how to stand there without panic. Many people fall apart in that space because they want proof before trust, results before obedience, relief before refinement. But you are being trained to trust God beyond what your eyes can confirm. That kind of trust changes how you walk, how you wait, and how you decide. It quiets desperation and replaces it with discernment. It removes the urge to force outcomes and replaces it with patience that knows God is already at work. God is also reshaping how you define success. Success is no longer just accumulation, it is alignment. It is waking up without dread. It is making decisions without fear. It is knowing that what you have is clean, earned with integrity, and handled with wisdom. God is not interested in rushing you into wealth that would fracture your peace. God is interested in establishing you in provision that strengthens your life. That is why this process has been so intentional and so precise. There are unseen battles you have already won. You resisted bitterness when disappointment would have been easier. You chose honesty when shortcuts were available. You kept your values intact when pressure tried to bend them. Those victories matter. They shape your authority. They prepare you to stand firm when increase comes and temptation rises alongside it. God does not just watch what you receive. God watches how you respond when tested. And you have passed tests that no one applauded and no one documented, but they were recorded in the unseen. Now you are learning to move with wisdom instead of urgency. Urgency reacts, wisdom responds. Urgency fears missing out. Wisdom trusts timing. Urgency grabs, wisdom waits. This shift is not accidental. God is slowing your pace so you do not outrun your protection. When you move with wisdom, you make fewer mistakes and build more stability. That stability becomes the ground on which lasting provision stands. Be mindful of the voices you allow to influence you. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every suggestion carries wisdom. Some voices speak from fear, some from envy, some from ignorance of your journey. But God speaks with clarity even when the direction is subtle. Learn to recognize that calm assurance that does not pressure you, that does not confuse you, that does not contradict integrity. That is the guidance that keeps you aligned when options multiply. You are also being invited into a deeper level of responsibility. where your choices affect more than just yourself. This is why God has been shaping your character so carefully. Provision tied to purpose always carries impact beyond personal comfort. It creates stability for others. It opens doors for service. It becomes a means to solve problems, not create new ones. God entrusts resources to those who see beyond themselves. There may be moments when you feel unqualified for what is unfolding. Do not let that insecurity take root. God does not call the qualified. God qualifies those who are willing. Your humility keeps you teachable. Your awareness keeps you grounded. You do not need to know everything. You need to remain connected to the one who does. Growth happens step by step, not all at once. Remember that discipline is not restriction, it is protection. The habits you built during times of lack will preserve you during times of abundance. The caution you learned when resources were limited will guide you when resources expand. Do not abandon those lessons. They are part of your strength. They are the reason you will not lose what you gain. There is also healing happening in your relationship with provision itself. Old fears are loosening their grip. Old patterns are being broken. You are no longer making decisions from a place of survival, but from a place of clarity. That healing is necessary because unhealed fear can sabotage even the greatest opportunity. God heals the heart so the hands can manage wisely. Stay attentive. Stay steady. Stay faithful in small things even as bigger things approach. Consistency keeps you aligned when excitement rises. Faithfulness anchors you when momentum builds. You do not need to announce what God is doing. Let the results speak. Let your peace testify. Let your discipline show. Let your generosity reveal the change that has taken place within you. This journey is teaching you that true provision begins long before resources arrive. It begins with trust. It grows through obedience. It is sustained by wisdom. And it is fulfilled through gratitude. When these elements come together, what God releases does not fade quickly or disappear under pressure. It endures. As you continue forward, do not lose sight of the source. Gratitude keeps your heart aligned. Humility keeps your spirit open. Wisdom keeps your path steady. God is not only meeting needs, God is shaping a future that is balanced, stable, and purposeful. And as you walk into what has been prepared, you will recognize that the greatest transformation was not just in your circumstances, but in your understanding, your confidence, and your unwavering trust in God, who guided you through every unseen step and continues to lead you forward with intention, care, and perfect timing.